Hi there. I hope you can hear me. I hope you can see me. Welcome to I have no idea which number of episode this is of the OctoPrint Code and Chat live coding session, whatever you want to call it. I'm your host, Gina Heuske, and this time I did not have any technical difficulties that so far I know of. So yay, we are starting exactly on time. For those of you tuning in for the first time or who did not tune in the last time, this is a continuation of last time, where on what was it? I think Tuesday we started. I have to mute my headphones. Okay, because otherwise I hear myself. On Tuesday we started on a little plug-in right from the very ground up, and we are going to continue to work on this today. I'm going to go into what this plugin is and also give you a quick refresh on what it currently does and what the goals are and all that in a minute. Just some quick usual stuff. If you see me looking up there, that's me looking at the chat. You can participate in a live chat. I try to keep up with it and also try to answer questions and all that. So this is not just me coding and ignoring all of you, but please participate if you're watching this live, of course. If you see me looking there, that's where my main screen is, which I will also share with you. And this is the other screen, so just so you know why I'm not looking into the camera when I'm not looking into the camera, which will probably be most of the time. Okay, so let's just dive right in, I guess. I'm going to move over to the other, and there we also have the live chat. Ha, awesome. We are going to continue to work on the OctoPrint Terminus stats plugin, which we started on last time, which was an idea by Roms or Romses, who's also in the chat. Hi. And the goal of this plugin is to get an indicator of lines sent or received from the printer in the front end. What we did last time is we created a plugin project hooked into sending, receiving lines, implemented a worker that sends updates via the push API to the front end every 5 seconds with lines counted during that time frame, reset the counter after each push. And we implemented a front end component that listens on these push events and shows a small counter into the terminal tab. That looks roughly like this, what we currently have. And we also already added a small first enhancement, which was additionally to the lines per second, we also display the bytes per second. Styling this differently is something that's still on the to-do list, as you can see here. Better styling without jumping around of values. So you don't have to mention it, I'm aware. But what we are going to do today is or what I hope that we will achieve today, rather, I'm not entirely sure yet, because obviously I still have to do all of this. I have not prepared it in any way. We'll look into how to make this refresh interval configurable, so how to implement a settings panel in a plugin, and how to persist settings in the first place, how to read settings in the back end and all that. Then last time we discovered that if we upload a file to the printer's SD, which will be streamed through a serial interface, it doesn't measure that currently. So we will look into changing that by changing the way that the lines are tracked. I also have this idea of maybe adding a small sparkline to the display so that we get a bit of an over time kind of sense of how things develop. Then the better styling thing and long term, but I don't think that we will get around to do this today or at all. I'm not entirely sure yet if I actually want to do that or not. I'll see, is to actually separate the tracking of the throughput and the calculation and all that into a separate process so that it does not bog down the actual part of OctoPrint that needs to print. So the idea behind this is that I don't know how familiar you are with Python, but there is this concept in Python that's called, or rather in CPython, which is the major Python implementation, which is called the Global Interpreter Log, or short, the GIL. And this GIL is kind of the problem or kind of the reason why usually when you spawn threads in Python, you cannot have them spawn across multiple cores. It's really tricky in Python to make use of multiple cores due to that. And the only solution that at least I'm aware of is to not spawn threads, but spawn full processes. Of course, that with it that brings the problem of sharing memory and all that. So you have to do inter-process communication, what is shortened here as IPC. And yeah, that gets ugly fairly quickly, but it has the advantage of being able to, as I said, utilize multiple cores, and it also has the advantage of not bogging down the one core that is responsible of feeding your printer with stuff. So that is the idea behind this point, but as I said, I don't think we will get around to do that today. Maybe in a later version, a later episode. And Ramses just wrote in the chat that the SD traffic is not important to him. It is to me though, because the thing is, if you print stream to the printer by you just by streaming a G-code file to the printer and the printer immediately prints it, you don't get so this information that we are plotting here, this will get you an idea of how fast you are currently processing stuff, but it will not give you an idea of how fast you could be processing stuff, because the firmware will only signal to OctoPrint to continue sending when it actually can receive. So when you have long moves, for example, in the printer, the so-called planner buffer within the firmware will take a bit to be processed through, and as long as that is full, the firmware will not signal to OctoPrint to please send more lines. So if we want to also utilize this plugin in order to get an idea how fast we can send, which is something that personally I am quite interested in, then we want to be able to monitor streaming of streaming of an SD upload, basically, to also be measured, because that will not be impeded by movement lengths or something like this. So in that case, it will really be as fast as possible with regards to sending a checksummed and line numbered line to the firmware, getting the firmware processing that, writing it to SD, getting an okay for that back, and then sending the next line. So this is the fastest version of the cycle that we can actually plot. That, of course, is still not the fastest that the serial itself could possibly go, but it is the fastest that is achievable between the host and the firmware. And this is the kind of measurement that I am actually interested in for benchmarking reasons. So I also am implementing this plugin not only to give you an idea how to implement a plugin, but also in the hopes that it will maybe give me a debug tool, and also a tool for lending support to people by just installing that and then telling me what values they see. So that's the general idea right now. But yeah, for now it's simply an educational kind of thing. But I have my hidden agenda here at work. So this is why I want to do this measuring of SD stream throughput thing possible. Okay. So before we dive into making the interval configurable, which is the first item on our enhancement to-do list today, I thought I would give you a quick tour again over our source that we created last time. And in case you want to take a look yourself, it's actually on GitHub. So if you go to github.com/octoprint/octoprint-terminal stats, you will find the source as it was just before I started the stream. I might also be pushing to it during the stream, so we will. You might be able to actually scroll through it yourself. You're not completely reliant on me going wherever you want to go. And what we did was we used the developer, the OctoPrint dev plugin :new command in order to have us have OctoPrint create this basic folder structure for us from the cookie cutter template. And then we yeah, we mostly just worked in this OctoPrint underscore terminal stats folder here, which contains our templates, our static files, our JS parts. So far, it does not contain any templates, but we'll change that briefly. And most importantly, the main file. And as you can see, contrary to what we had in the little text file down here, we actually set the interval from 5 to 2 somewhere during the development. And what we have here is something that it implements the asset plugin mixin so that it can push a JS file to the front end, and implements the event handler plugin so that it can react to the connected event and reset a bunch of stuff. It can also update itself. This here is implemented is an implementation of the G-code sent and received hooks so that we react to any lines that are sent or received. And not actually any lines, but only lines that are not being streamed to the printer for SD upload, which is why this is currently not working. Come to think of it, it might actually be something that I should change in, well, not now. And we implemented this worker, which, so the sent and the received handler just increment the number of lines sent or received, and also sums up the number of bytes. And the worker then calculates the lines per second or bytes per second. Based on that, resets everything to 0 and pushes it to the front end. And in the front end, we had a very simple view model that, first of all, creates some JavaScript to inject it into the terminal tab, which is this whole big part, and the actual processing of the backend messages only takes place in this onData message plugin message, which is the counterpart to self plugin manager send plugin message, which updates a bunch of elements with the current data, and that's it. So this is what we did last time. And what we're going to do now is implement a settings plugin, pretty much. So what we want is, I just have to say here, I find it funny that the live chat display in my XSplit thingy here, so in the stream, updates faster than the actual live chat that I'm monitoring on YouTube. So that's weird, but okay. Nice. That's also working. We are going to have to create two things. So first of all, we'll have to implement the settings plugin mixin, and I'm going to show you the docs for that right now, in a moment. And we'll also have to create a template for the settings panel, so for the configuration page, basically. Also, hi, Brian, you're not that late. All is good. No, the docs. I wanted to go to the docs. The documentation of, developing plugins, mixins. And what we want is the settings plugin. So how this works is you implement the settings plugin mixin, and then you have to override a bunch of methods in order to tell OctoPrint what to do with your settings. And usually you just actually need to override this one get settings defaults, in which you will return a dictionary that tells OctoPrint which settings you do have. And in case you have settings that are not just strings, but also numbers or booleans or something, you might also want to override on settings safe so that you can make sure that stuff is actually correctly set and all that. And we'll get to that in a moment. There is some more things that you can do here. So if you want to change your settings format somewhere down the road, you can use something called a config version key in order to display that, so you can do settings migrations and all that. So there's a mechanism for that. We are not going to need this today, but I thought it might be nice to maybe mention it so people get aware of this. Get settings defaults we just discussed. Get settings preprocessors is something that you can use to process specific keys and such. Oh, interesting. I completely forgot about that one. That's nice. Okay. See, I should read my own documentation from time to time. This one is something that often gets forgotten by plugin developers, and which is why I want to mention it here, even though we will not need it now, is get settings restricted paths. So the thing is the way OctoPrint settings currently work is if your plugin creates settings, OctoPrint will assume those settings are public at first. So it will also allow only logged in use. So it will allow, how to say? So if you have enabled guest access to your OctoPrint instance, even guests will be able to see them. Otherwise, only logged in users will be able to see them. Not necessarily in the front end, but they will be able to query them from the server. So you really do not want to put access keys or something like that for third-party APIs into the settings without protecting them in some way. And this is what this get settings restricted paths method is for. Because using that, you can say which of your settings are admin only, user only, or should never be pushed to the front end, never be made available there. So this is something that you really should look in if you want to implement an OctoPrint plugin that needs an API key of some sorts or some password or something like that. So something that should stay secret and probably only be touched by an admin and only be seen by an admin of your OctoPrint instance. Take a look at that then. Very important. Get settings version is, the thing that gets used by config version key, I think. No, wait, I'm confused right now. That holds the config format version. Oh no, never mind. That's something else. Okay, but same thing, I think. Int or none. Okay, now I'm confusing myself. What do I need this for? Funny. Well, I'll have to look that up later. Ignore what I told you about this one for now, and instead apply it to get settings version. So this is the thing that triggers migration if you need this. On settings cleanup is called after migration, settings initialized. All of this stuff is not really, all of this is not really important. On settings load is interesting if you want to adjust some stuff. The same goes for on settings save. You can also override this in order to react to changes in settings. So for example, if we reset the interval, we might want to trigger that in some way, as well as a change on the repeated timer that we implemented in order to do this regular worker for our plugin, stuff like this. Though we will do it differently, I think, but yeah. So this is the whole settings plugin mixin, and the only thing that we are going to look at for now is get settings defaults. So we are going to implement the settings plugin mixin, and then we are going to, apologies, shift mod that one, yeah. We're going to, and this should actually say handler and not hooked, mixin. I'm confusing myself. Yeah, I hope the font size is okay this time from the get-go. Also, in case you notice weird typos from me, I'm still adjusting to my new keyboard. I got a new, I got myself the ultimate hacking keyboard, which is a fancy mechanical keyboard with a split design, and you can also tent it and all like that. The thing is, it's a 60% keyboard, so I'm still adjusting to having way less keys than usual. Plus, it runs US layout, so I'm also adjusting to that. But I'm getting there. My brain is way more rewired to the new layout that I'm currently learning today than it was on Tuesday. So yeah, the number of typos should be less, I hope. But still, just as a word of warning, that's the reason. I usually am more performant when I'm typing than you might see me today. Okay, so get settings defaults, right? Let me quickly check before I do something. Get settings defaults, yeah. And self. And then we want to return the dictionary that contains our settings. And we only have one. And we are going to set this to 2.0, or rather to this by default. And now OctoPrint knows which settings we have. And yes, Joe, I completely agree. Also, thanks again for helping with this keyboard. I'm having a blast working with this thing. Okay, so now with this change, we already have this interval within OctoPrint. OctoPrint will now make sure to make this key available to us. By default, it will set it to this value, but you will also be able to override it via config YAML. And whatever you override it there with will also be accessible now. So this is all that it took to make this a configurable value. We cannot yet edit it via the settings dialog, but at least it is now a configurable value. So what we can do now is, instead of having self-interval all over the place here, we can make it do something like this and fetch the current interval from, I think it will be a float value, and fetch the current interval from our settings. And it will be it will work just like this. So we are now going to replace all cases of self-interval in this section with interval instead, and that should already do it. Yeah, and also I hope you noticed the little shortcut overlay thingy that I put down there in the lower right corner. Last time I still had something that was integrated into PyCharm, but now you should also see shortcuts wherever I type them, even in VS Code or in Firefox or whatever. So I hope that helps a bit in case you're wondering about why things are currently happening or something like that on the screen. Okay, so that should already work. At least for this here, I think. I'm not sure right now. Did we have the interval in here somewhere as well? No, it was just in the backend, right? Yeah, that makes sense because we are calculating the rate there. Oh, right. No, that was okay. The repeated timer, of course. Yeah, that also needs the interval. And what we are going to do here is we're going to utilize a feature of the repeated timer. So I hope that works. No, that doesn't work. Okay. So we have to do it that way. Oh, no, we don't have to do it that way. We do it differently. Wait. So usually I would refer you to the documentation, but last time we discovered that something in the documentation was currently broken. Or was it only broken? Let's check. Internal modules, OctoPrint util. Oh, it wasn't broken for that part. Perfect. So, repeated timer takes interval and function. This is what we currently use. We can also supply args and keyword args to the function. You can define a condition on which it will run or not run. And what you can also do is, you can't. Wait. I was just about to tell you that you could supply it with a function that returns the current interval. Or was interval possibly... Oh, right, it can be a float, or that was a trick. Okay, so instead of giving it the current interval, we can give it a callable, so a function or something like that returns the interval to you. So on every iteration, it will call that function and will only sleep as long as the current value is being... It is getting returned. I hope that was grammatically more or less correct. So what we're going to do is we are going to create a small helper function that fetches the current value from the settings. So all it does is fetch the interval from there. And because it looks nicer that way, we are going to make that a property. So instead of doing self._interval parentheses, I can now just do self._interval in order to access that, and it will execute the function. And then we are going to, oh wait, no, we have to keep it as, we have to actually keep it a thingy, I fear, because otherwise it will inject the return value into what I'm going to do now and not, yeah, okay. Where was it? Where, yeah. So we are going to use this instead. So it's now telling it to use self_interval, and self_interval is a callable. And yes, Johan, it is, but we are going to use this as an example on how to react to settings updates, so to changes, via this on settings save thing that I showed you earlier. And you know what, I'm actually going to do that right away instead of making it more complicated. So we have a self_interval. You are right. Let's do it. Let's do it correctly first, and not show it how it should not be done, and then yeah. Okay, so self_interval. Well, it should actually get a number. We're going to initialize it to that, and then in the initialize method, we are actually going to initialize it to. I'm getting better at hitting the right keys. We can actually just declare it to none. So the thing here is why I do it here and not here. Why I cannot do, or rather why I cannot do this here, is because here in init, when the object is getting constructed, so our terminal stats plugin object is getting constructed, we do not yet have self._settings injected into the thing. So when OctoPrint fires up your plugin, it will initialize some stuff, which also includes injecting some things which are documented there under injected properties. So it will inject all of this, but it can only inject it once your plugin object, your plugin implementation has actually been instantiated, which happens after this has been after this has been called. And once this has been called, all this initialization and injection stuff happens, and then OctoPrint will call this method on your plugin. So this is where you can do stuff like accessing stuff that was injected, and is also where you only should start doing things that get repeated, like using this, instantiating a timer or something like that. Okay, so now we have self_interval set to the value at start, but when we now update it, we also want it to update. So what we're going to do is override def on settings save. And I think that took additional parameters. Yep, the settings data that is about to be saved. There. So what we do is old interval is whatever we currently have configured. Then we call our parent class. So that the regular saving will take place. And then we look at what the interval is now. And I'm simply going to copy that. And if the old interval differs from the new interval, then you update your interval. So your cached interval, you could say. So this should already work fine now. So if we change during runtime, through a saving of the settings, if we change the interval, it will get updated. our internal interval thingy will get updated, and therefore this will start to return something else. So on the next repeated timer iteration, the worker will sleep for the new interval and not the old one. And Ramses is wondering if you can call a timer on a float interval. And yes, you actually can, because the repeated timer is on a different page. Maybe I should open that in a resettable timer, repeatable timer, repeated timer. Takes a float or a callable. So the thing is that it uses time.sleep, and time.sleep in Python takes a float value. So you can have it sleep for 1.5 seconds or for 0.6 seconds or something. So it is a sleep value in seconds, and hence it takes a float. So that's correct. So far so good. So let's see. As I said, I continuously will probably hit Control S, even though it's not necessary per se here in PyCharm because it saves automatically, but it's just a habit that I formed, so don't be confused by that. What we're going to do is we are going to manually change this value now for our plugin. We called it terminal stats, right? So it should go here. I mean, it doesn't really matter, but oh, no. We don't do that. Indentation is really bloody important in YAML. And we are going to override it here. So it is, per default, it is 2 seconds, and we are going to increase it to 10 seconds, just because we want to test if this works correctly. And what we are also going to do is have this log that it started with the interval as configured, so we know it. No, it's here. So that should hopefully have it log a message here, which we will shortly see. Also, as a reminder, self.logger is another one of these injected properties, which we are also already using down here in order to put out this line that you currently constantly see scrolling through down there. Okay, so we're going to restart. And there it was. Where was it? Terminal starts timer initialized with an interval of 10.0 seconds, which of course is way too slow, but we are still going to verify that it actually is that slow. So 27 and 37, right? So roughly every 10 seconds. Okay, and now we want to make it configurable through the web interface. So, oh, I'm in the wrong location. I want to go there. So first of all, we are going to create a file, a template file, which we are going to call, and now this is where we have to take a look at the documentation for the template plugin mixin. Because we want to create a settings dialog and we want to do it with the least effort possible, so we are going to use the default template name for it, which is plugin identifier underscore settings. So in our case, that will be terminal stats underscore settings.ginger2. So this is what we are calling this thing, terminal stats underscore settings.ginger2. Yes, we want to add that to Git. And just to demonstrate how it works, we are going to add an hello Livestream there. Save, restart. And verify that it actually shows up in the settings panel. There's my water. Also, I don't know if you noticed, but the reflections of my glasses should be way less problematic this time. with good lighting. So yeah, I upgraded my setup slightly. We now have a polarized LED spot up there, and we have a softbox over there, and we have a polarization filter right in front of the webcam. So yeah. And hello, Ashby. Nice to see you here. All right, so we restarted the server. Now we're going to check that we actually have a settings pane now. So settings, and then we scroll down, and we don't have one. That is possibly a case of a caching issue that I'm still trying to debug. Either that or I did something wrong. Or I simply forgot to... Yep. Obviously, we should also tell OctoPrint that we have templates. So yeah, that should have gone there earlier. Restart another time. Second try. There it is. And it says hello Livestream. So that worked after all. And now we want to populate it. And what I always do in such cases, instead of trying to remember how to create the HTML structure, is I heavily borrow from existing plugins. Please don't judge me for that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a look into the software update plugin, because I remember that there was apparently not. Okay. Plugin manager. Templates. I think that has an interval configure interval somewhere, which we can just borrow and then reuse. I just have to find it. There. So I want this kind of thing. And I also want to put it into a form class equals form horizontal. So what was it? Great. Form dash horizontal. What? No. There it is. Yeah, those angled brackets are still a bit of an issue for me, because I always expect them on my left pinky, but actually I should type them with the middle and the ring finger on the right hand now on the US layout. So and also shift. So yeah, that always gets me. So we are going to just reuse this stuff, though we'll have this markup, but we'll have to heavily modify it. No. Now. Okay. Between the throughput measurements, then we'll give it a label of just isn't this actually a sampling rate? It's a sampling rate. That's going to be in seconds, and it's going to be a number, and we're going to bind it to let me quickly think Oh, we are going to bind it to, was it just settings.settings? Wait, how was that again? Or what was that again? So the thing is, by default, OctoPrint will bind interval then. By default, unless you specify custom bindings, wait, is this correct what I'm saying here? Give me a second. Oh, actually, okay. So if your template, or rather your plugin, specifies that for its template, for its settings template, its tab template, for whatever template it wants to use custom bindings, which is the default, so we'll have to briefly change we have to change the template config in a bit, but then you'll have to provide your own view model in order to change the settings. To bind value, to be able to bind values in this template. We actually do not want to provide our view model, or rather change our existing view model to also allow us to access the settings, because that just makes things a bit more complicated, because the settings dialog as a whole by default is bound to the settings view model, which allows us to access plugin settings as well. And so we want to tell OctoPrint actually to not apply custom bindings to our settings page, but instead let us use the global settings view model here. So what we're going to do is simply, we don't have a section for that yet. We are going to implement an we are going to implement something from the template plugin nicht mixing, which is the get get template configs method, which returns a list of dictionaries, one for each of your template types, and that allows you to overload stuff. And all the defaults still apply for things. So the default template name, for example, we don't have to respecify that. Dev get template configs, and it was for configs, right? Not plural, because the last time I did this, I did it wrong. Okay, yeah. And we're going to return a list with one entry only, which is the template type of settings, and we want to set custom bindings to false on that. And that should make it so that this stuff here will be bound to the regular settings view model. And in the regular settings view model, we can access stuff by, I think it was just settings.plugins. And then the ID of the plugin, and then not the interval, but the value that we want. So I think this should work. I'm not entirely sure. We'll have to check. It's been a while. But yeah, we are going to restart. And actually, we could take a look quickly into the plugin tutorial, because I just remembered that our Wikipedia Hello World thingy example down here should actually be... Does it offer settings, or was it only the thing up there? Settings plugin, navbar settings. Oh, it was actually settings dot and then like that. No, it wasn't. Sorry, apologies. This one is the right one because this one is the part in. So that should work. Okay. Right, now we're going to restart, reload. And then it should hopefully show us 10 seconds here, which it does. That's great. What it also should already do now is if we set this to 5 here and save, it should have updated our value in the config YAML. And now we have a problem that is sadly something that happens a lot, is that by default, OctoPrint will send this stuff as text, so that the front end will send this stuff as text over the thingy, over the line. Apologies, it's a Friday evening. And we don't want this to be a string, we want this to be a number, and actually we want this to be a float. So we have to tell OctoPrint to change that into a float, and we are already doing this stuff here anyhow. So what we can do is we take a look into the data, and if there is an interval value in our data, we want to make sure that it is a float value. So we rewrite it into a float value. But of course that might fail because it might not be a valid float value after all. It's coming straight from the user after all over the API. It could be anything. So we need this try except block here, or actually in case of a value error. So if something doesn't work about this this conversion, then this was apparently an invalid value for a float, and so we don't even want to save it at all and just remove it from the data, so that this data thing will be empty then, and yeah, the settings that will be saved will not contain garbage. At least I hope that was how it works. It's been a while. So we're probably going to see an error now because it's trying to utilize oh, it surprisingly works. I'm a bit confused by this, I have to say. Yeah, okay, so it seems that I apparently wrote it a bit more defensively than I expected, and the repeated timer will actually convert stuff that is not a callable into a float, but okay. Oh no, right, we are reading it from, yeah, sorry. So the reason why this works is because when we are checking this stuff here, the self underscore interval thing will uses the value from the config but read as a float. So even if there's a string already in the config, it will work. But we also want to make sure we do not write strings into the config, so this should hopefully work. And if we now reload, go here and try to set this to, I don't know, 2.5 sec. Okay, I have to figure out why that doesn't work, but then just set it to 3. We'll set it to 3. Then it should hopefully now have written a number, and it has written a number, and it actually has written a float. So this is working now. Now is the question, why doesn't it take input type number? Shouldn't that take... I think I have to look this up quickly. So HTML input number, and we want that one. Any floating point number. That it should allow us to set that. Okay. I'm not entirely sure why the HTML here is preventing us from putting in an actual floating point there. Oh, now it isn't. Wait. Oh, because it was a string earlier, probably, right? Does it do this now? Yeah. Okay, whatever that was, it was probably a fluke due to the weird data that we had there. And we can also increase and decrease it that way. But the problem is we can still put it into the negative, and we don't want that. So what we're going to do here is we are going to set this to a minimum of 1. Because less than 1 second of sampling size doesn't really make sense. And Ollie asks if I think there will be a function like reset to default settings in the UI in the future. Yeah, it's something that actually would make sense, but this is something that I would want to bind to the general settings Rehaul, because yeah, right now adding settings and changing settings and stuff in plugins is really nice and easy, because it auto converts, not auto converts, but at least it auto adds things to the API and such. But in the main part of so in the core code, it's a bit of a mess, because I have to manually add it to the settings API. And I mentioned it, I think, 3 episodes or so ago, when we adjusted something. When we added a new setting for something, I can't remember right now for what. It had something to do with the serial, I think. And I had to go through, I think, 4 files or something to make it available on the API and readable and writable, and also make it show up in the settings dialog and all that. And what I would really like to see is just define a setting structure with a data structure that just has something like a name, a default value, and a type or something, and a description and such, and all of that translatable, obviously, and then have the settings API automatically generate for that correctly, so that values are also converted, so we don't get this mess that we just had with the string being saved in a config for a float value. And all of this, and ideally that would also be nice to be able to auto-generate a settings page for that. So have the option, of course, to still custom tailor it to your needs, but also if you just need to quickly have a full settings page for a whole bunch of settings or subsettings or something like that, just be able to throw that at a function and or a template or a helper or something, and it just goes whoop and is done. So that would be nice. But so far it isn't there yet. But that would be my goal, because that would also open up stuff like having a developer or development settings page or something where I can just throw stuff into the devel options and it will show up there, and I don't have to hardcode everything. So yeah, might actually be something that I should think about in 1.5.0, because I have been meaning to do that for 5 years now or so. And the pain is real. Okay, but so this is now limited to anything larger than 1 in the front end, but not in the back end. So you could still send it, send a settings save request to OctoPrint, and would be able to set an interval of -1 or something like that. And we don't want that. We want to do some input validation here. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to make sure that this interval is sane. So we're going to check if data interval, if this is yeah, I wanted this and not my drop-down console on the other screen. If this interval is smaller than 1, then it's invalid, and we will raise a value error, which immediately will trigger this part of the code, so we don't have to write this twice. It's the only reason why I do it this way right now. Interval must be then 1. Yeah. Yeah, I could do that too, Ramses. I'm doing it that way because if I want to, I could also now add a logger here that does something like logging that there was an invalid. Actually, let me quickly, because that can at least help sometimes when you are debugging stuff. yeah, we are going to just throw that in there. And we're actually going to have it not only write out or in the debug log in that case if there is an invalid interval. Say this 10 times very fast right after each other. We are making sure it is not only logging the value, so the string representation of the value, but actually the representation of the data type as well. So this in a format string in Python is the equivalent of removing this exclamation mark R thing and just putting a wrapper. Damn, it's really difficult to say around your object, but we're not going to do that because we can just throw in the interval here. Okay, so this is now limited to 1 or larger, both in the front end and in the back end. We can change stuff. The only thing that is still left is probably to remove this part here. And that should already be it. We might want to maybe add a header, come to think of it. That was here, yeah. It's just like, we don't really need this, but just having the box there alone might be a bit boring, I don't know. So terminal starts plugin, terminal starts configuration, sampling interval, 5 seconds, 4 seconds, whatever. We're going to set this to the default again, which should actually make it disappear from the config. Yep, because OctoPrint only persists stuff that is not the default. Okay. So I think that means we can cross something from our list because we just made the interval configurable. And we're going to commit this. And push it. Push it. Just a quick look because I forgot this during the commit, so we added this. And we changed that. Yeah, that's it. Push. Yeah, and that should hopefully now show up here. Wait. Why didn't I get... Oh, because it's... Yeah, never mind. Okay, so next stop, measuring of SD stream throughput. So that's going to be a bit ugly. So there's this thing in OctoPrint that's called a printer callback, and which is something that you can use to register to any events that are generated on the printer communication layer itself. So originally that was not really meant to be used by plugins, but yeah, then someone started doing it, and it actually is a good solution to implement that for various reasons. One of which is getting access to everything that comes or goes over the serial line, even if you're streaming to SD. Because this is the stuff, this callback is actually what contains or pushes the data that shows up in here. So if I connect to the printer, or the printer now because it's just a virtual one. Oh, apparently I broke something. Wait a second. Oh no, I didn't. It was just slow. Okay. So if I upload to SD, that's a bit too big. Let's try that one. If I start streaming this to SD, you see all these lines here, but none of them are triggering our hook, which is why this stays empty, even though this doesn't, because yeah, these are the received lines and we still see them, but the send stuff, the send hook is not triggered for streaming to SD. But as you saw, it still shows up in the terminal log, so it gets pushed to the printer callback. And this is what we are going to utilize now. And I actually wanted to look if it is documented in here. I'm not entirely sure, to be honest. Printer. Not sure if not documented or if documentation generation is broken. Let us maybe look into the source after all. The source is your friend. So this is source of OctoPrint. And we're going to take a look into printer in it. Yeah, so this auto class stuff is apparently broken at the moment because it should have documented printer interface and printer callback. I really need to figure out why. Also look at how old that is when I started working on this for the first time. So this is the printer interface, and somewhere down here is the printer callback. And the printer callback has this little method here, and this is what is going to help us here. At least that's the goal. So, and we'll also have to register ourselves with the printer callback. And we do that by calling register callback on the printer object, which is one of the things, again, that we get injected. So that's really nice here. So we're going to, first of all, tell OctoPrint that, or not tell OctoPrint, but rather we are also going to implement the printer callback. Was it just printer callback or printer callback interface? I have to check, because that's still from a time when I was a Java programmer and had the feeling I had to attach interface to everything. No, that's okay. And we are only going to implement this single method here in our class. Of course, that should be def, right? And now things get a bit tricky because what you get here is already looking like this. So it has this receive and, well, somewhere is hopefully also send. No send? I need a send. Ah, there is a send. So it has, these lines already look like this. So receive and send. And we saw our received lines. We can still count like we did. We are only interested in this in the lines that starts with send. So we are going to check if data starts with, or rather if data does not start with send. And if it doesn't start with send, we are going to ignore it. And if it starts with send, so if it is a line that we're interested in, again, we are going to increase the number of send lines by 1. The other way around, thank you. And also the number of send bytes by, and this is a bit of a important part now, by the length of the data, but minus, this is actually a send space, minus 6, because we don't want to count the send that is prefixed in front of it. So we're going to subtract that. And then we are not going to need this anymore. And thus we will also no longer need this hook registration. And of course we could also, instead of using the received handler here, we could also implement that over the onPrinter add log. And I'm currently thinking if we'd want to do that maybe. Yeah, I think we actually want to do that. So slight change in logic, apologies. If data starts with send, then we do this. Otherwise, elif if data starts with receive, then we do self_received lines plus equals 1 and self_received bytes plus equals len of data dash 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 is up there on US layout Gina, like that. And everything else we just ignore. The thing is that might also say something else than send and receive, because yeah, there might be plugins that inject stuff or something. We don't want that. We just want send and receive here. And then we can also remove the line received handler, hook, sorry. Can also remove it from here. And we don't need that comma anymore. And hopefully things still work. And if not, this is going to be a fun debug session just now. So let's see. Oh, right, sorry. Now we have implemented the printer callback. We should also actually register ourselves with the printer object, and we can do this up here in the initialize method. So we're going to tell our printer object to register a callback, which is ourself. And just as a reminder, here, let's look at the actual implementation. So we tell it to register a callback object, and it will then just add that stuff to the callback unless it doesn't implement the printer callback interface. There we have it, or subclass or whatever. So we now are registered to that, and that should already be it. We don't have to deregister ourselves, I think, because the printer object will stay initialized throughout the whole life cycle of OctoPrint. So as soon as the server starts, this plugin gets registered as a printer callback, and once the server shuts down, everything shuts down anyhow. So, okay. We're going to restart and see what happens. Hopefully something good. Time for some nuts. And some berries. No, yeah. Then we're going to connect. And it's still counting stuff, so that looks good. And if we now stream something to SD, or to SD, so this is not an actual printer that we're connected to here, but the virtual printer. So this is not an actual serial interface, but a fake. We're simply going to stream this one. And now we should hopefully, yeah, look at that. So we're now also now seeing the actual throughput that is currently going over there. So that was actually way easier than I anticipated. I expected some problems here. I have to admit, it's been a while since I did this. So we can check that off as well. Commit it. For measuring, and just so that future me or future whoever maintains this will know why we did this. Contrary to hooks, or to using hooks, we can also measure SD upload throughput this way. And welcome back, Justin, and hello, Kent. Hello, Sean. These nicknames all the time. And we can push this. Wait. Okay, somewhere my shortcut thingy broke, apparently. Oh yeah, it crashed. Nice. That is worrying, to say the least. Okay. If it stops working again, please tell me in the... Yeah, Sean, I used the callback. I told you last time I would do that. Push. Push it. And there it is. Yay! Isn't this nice? Okay, so what's the next item? Sparkline plotting throughput over time. Oh, yeah. Okay. So for this, first we'll need to find some kind of library in order to even plot sparklines, because right now this is not something that is present in OctoPrint anywhere, I think. And I do not want to reuse the temperature graph for this because it just feels wrong having to switch to the temperature graph in order to be able to see the terminal throughput, even though technically on the maintenance branch, and I now could, because Jim Neal provided a pull request 2 weeks or so ago, which allows the addition of the addition of temperature data into the data model at least, and then you still need some magic in OctoPrint's front end in order to make it visible. But yeah. So what I'm going to do is or rather what I did is I googled a bit earlier, and I found this this nifty thing here. It's a bit old, so I'm not entirely sure if it still works, but it seems to do what we want, and everything else that I found requires you to set up I don't know how complicated stuff through npm, and I honestly do not want to mess around with all these fancy JavaScript build systems now, when all I want is a tiny little sparkline in a tiny little web front end. So we're going to try if this works, and if not, we are going to look for something else. Yeah, Jim, I know. Either that or adjustments in the OctoPrint frontend, which I'm actually thinking about adding, so to be able to match any additional temperatures that show up, but yeah, haven't yet. Download. And we're simply going to take the minified version. It's easier that way. Not going to throw it in here. Was it that way? Yeah. We want to add it to Git. And now it's in there. And now we have to tell OctoPrint to also serve it to the front end, because we want to use it, and to be able to use it, we need it in the front end. So we're going to add it to our asset set as an not terminal, sparkline min.js as in the JavaScript section. Yeah. We can close that. We don't need that anymore. And then we have to take a look at our view model. And we'll need some place where we can put this. Yeah, and I know this is going to be horribly ugly, but for now I'm simply going to append it. Append another bunch of stuff to. There is the pipe. To this. I first have to define it actually. Self. And I think we're going to plot the byte rate. So received bytes Spark element is just going to be a very boring span element, I think. And the same, no, and the same for self send spark element. Yep, 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 yep. Ha! Look at that without looking. And so we are going to append that here. Actually, let's put a space there and just attach it right there. And we're going to copy that, replace that name. Nope. Replace that name, add a space here. And that should add this spawn there. So, but now we need to plot values in there. And, oops, nope, I need the docs, please. Yay. Okay. The way this works is that we call a sparkline method on the element. And as far as I understand, we might have to do that every time when we want to update it. But I'm not entirely sure yet because I've never used this library, so we'll have to play around with this. But it looks like that's the way. Oh, that's interesting. I mean, that doesn't help us in any way, but... Or does it? Nah, I'm not trusting it. Yeah, we are just going to recall this on every update for now and see what happens. Because, yeah, I simply do not know yet what it does exactly. The thing is, we currently do not have a history of values. We only have the current value. And the question now is whether we want to store the history on the backend or on the front end. If we do it on the back end, then it will be persisted across reloads, and if it is on the front end, every client will have to maintain it itself. I'm actually thinking about the back end. For now, we are simply going to plot one value to see if it even does anything. So on the receive spark element, we are going to call spark line, and then we are just going to provide it with an array of message.receive rate bytes. And we're going to do the same for the send spark element. Great. The shortcut display thing crashed again. The weird thing is I had it running, I think, the day before yesterday for the whole day, and it worked and worked and worked, and it even started to irritate me. It worked for hours, and now it apparently decided, nope, it's not going to work anymore. So let's at least enable the thing in here in JetBrains PyCharm again, so that we can see it here, what I'm pressing. Okay. Uh-oh. Wait a second. Apparently I lost a raisin or something, and I cannot find it. Okay, well. Something for the Roomba. So hopefully this should now, on every received measurement, update the sparkline displayed on this element, and I hope we will see something, but I'm not sure, so we'll have to try. We'll just have to try. I also have to restart because I added another setting, another asset, apologies. Right, and now we have to reload that. And then connect. And then hopefully something will happen. Or not. Now why? Is there something there or did it not work? Oh, sorry, you don't see that. Now you see it. And I actually wanted to inspect this element. Inspect element. Oh God. Okay. I didn't add, or did it? Ah, there, okay. So there is a spark line there, but it only has 3 pixels width. Yeah, I think we have to figure out how to change that. Probably because it only has one single value, and that makes it scale like that. But I was hoping to be able to... Ah, yeah. Code. Perfect. So we want to set it to, I don't know, something like 20 pixels for a check, the first check, and then we just... so we give it an options array. And we want to give the same options to both, so we're going to create this once. We don't necessarily need that. What was it, width? And was that just 20 or was that 20 pixels? It was actually a string, okay. Well, if it makes that thing happy, there we go. Control-Shift-C for inspect element. But yeah, okay, in theory it worked. In practice it's a bit hard to see because everything is so cramped here, but thank you, I didn't know that. That's nifty, okay. I usually just hit F12 and have that open on somewhere anyhow, so yeah. Okay. Oh, I should not have closed this. Yeah, and then we supply it here with the options, and the options, and there with the options as well. And then we reload. There's, I mean, something is there. It's just not displaying anything. I mean, yeah, we still have the problem that there's only one item in. Oh, only one. Wait, wasn't there some way to make this show up as a bar chart thingy? Yeah, yeah, okay. I mean, it has no. Can I 0 axis? Don't 0 the axis. So we are going to try type bar and 0 axis false. I just want one value to show up. So type bar and 0 axis false. Shouldn't it also need something like a min or a max? We are going to try this just to anchor it in some way. So if you're wondering why I'm not actually looking into creating a history first and then fighting this widget, I just want to make sure it's actually displaying anything, and I don't want to implement a whole history and then see, oh, okay, it's not working. So let's just, you know what? Let's just add 1, 2, 3. as well, so we have a bit of data to plot. Jim asks if the Firefox developer tools are any better than Chrome's. Actually, I would say it's the other way around. So the stuff in Firefox works fairly well, and Firefox is my main browser these days because yeah, when Chrome announced that they were removing this internal API that allows stuff like uBlock Origin to work, I figured, okay, Chrome, goodbye. But the problem with the Firefox developer tools is that it has real issues with knockout bindings. So when there's an issue with a knockout binding, it will just tell you that it failed, but you will not get a proper stack trace, and in Chrome you will. I have no idea why that is, but it's fairly annoying, and this is the only times that I boot up Chrome these days is really when I need to debug some binding issue in knockout. Other than that, I haven't yet discovered any significant differences between the two. But this is a fairly annoying difference. Look, that's looking good. So there is something that... This is 0? Oh yeah, of course it's 0. Now it's 46. And now it's 0 again. Now, okay, so these thingies, they are working. And we're actually going to make them a bit wider. Oops, no. We only want one. Yep. Okay. And now we are going to implement a proper history in the backend. We are going to limit stuff to, let's say, the last... Now this is a question. Do we limit it to a set amount of measuring points, or do we limit it to a time frame? And I'm actually thinking we are limiting it to a set of measuring points, something like 10. So at the minimum, we'll get 10 seconds plotted in that thing, and at a maximum, we will get whatever 10 times the interval is. Yeah, so that's the current idea. And apparently now I sparked the discussion of ad blockers on the live chat. Yay me! Just a word in my own interest, please. When you are using an ad blocker, please unblock the carbon ads, or at least unblock them on the on octoprint.org, plugins octoprint.org, and community octoprint.org. That's the only place where I ever in my life have set ads, because frankly, they help a ton at the traffic these pages are seeing. And considering that I'm paying about $100 by now per month just for all the infrastructure costs that I have to shoulder, this helps a ton. And also it means I have to, beg less for people supporting me on Patreon or PayPal or DonorBox or stuff like that. So yeah, you can also help Octoprint by just having these pages serve you the carbon ads. And carbon ads are, how do you say, very much white hat, very okay. So they are invite only. Not everyone can even serve them, and they are tailored towards developers and all that. And I've been fairly happy with them. I have them unblocked myself, so whenever I come across an open source project that also serves them, they get my impressions and get some money that way from me. So yeah, but yeah, I'm stepping off my soapbox now and we'll continue with the code. So what I said is we need some history here. So first of all, we need to prepare a place to store the history. And now I'm thinking, wasn't there some kind of data structure that can be limited to size? Was it the DQ? Let me quickly look if it was that thing. That looks good. So we're going to use a DQ. So we're going to set this to an empty list and a max length of 10. Wait, we are going to make this another constant just because it makes code so much more maintainable. Yeah. Another DQ that starts empty and has a max len of max history. Okay, and now every time that we calculate this stuff down here, we are not only going to log it and things, but we are also going to append it to our history. So send history dot append self, no, not self, send rate bytes. Oops, no, that was wrong. Also self receive history append receive rate bytes. And then we are going to push this send rate history to our front end as well. And then here we can, instead of using this array, we can instead say message dot receive rate history, and the same here, instead of this stuff, message dot send rate history. I hope this works. With 40 type bar 0x is false, restart. And I'm not going to go on my firmware standard soapbox now. No, 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 no. You don't want that. Not on a Friday evening after a long, long and exhausting week. Because then I will not stop ranting until it's until the weekend is over, and that will not be relaxing for any of us. Okay, I'm going to reload. And we also need to reconnect to the browser, I cannot talk. And that actually looks good. Right? What happens if we print something just as a test? It feels a bit like it is really slowing down things. I don't know how you, but it feels a bit like the scrolling hesitates a bit whenever it updates this thing. So the question is if we can make it dynamic so that it pulls the data from some, or does it? I'm not sure. Maybe I'm seeing things. Is it 10 entries? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It looks like only... God damn it, hold still. I'm trying to plot you. No, it's 10, okay. What did we actually have the... 2 seconds. Okay. Oh! That should not happen. Okay, that's never mind that. That has nothing to do with our current development, but something that I broke earlier today. But this is actually what I meant, Jim, when I said earlier that the developer tools in Firefox have this issue with errors in knockout models, because now we have this here error calling settings hidden, and we get the precise location where it happens, but we don't get the reason why it happens. So if we just quickly fire up Chrome, and trigger, and hopefully trigger the same error there. Oh, we also have to... how do I get this over to you? Yeah. And I think I just opened the settings. Then I closed them without saving. Yeah, okay. Now here I get type error, self-server online resolution check text is not a function, which is very helpful to get as an information, and which Firefox is simply not telling me. I don't know why. It's also not hidden here. I can drop this down as much as I want. I will never get this text, this very helpful and informative message out of this stack trace here. And yeah, this is so annoying compared to just quickly firing it up and reproducing it here and then seeing this message. So helpful. Yeah. Yeah. Can actually close this again. Yeah. How long is this going to print? Quite a while, actually. Okay. We can experiment a bit with the look and feel of this, maybe. So this is how it looks. Bar style. Then we have line style. Tri-state. No, we don't need tri-state. Discrete. Oh, fancy. Bullet. And pie. No, definitely not a pie. Box pie. No. So it's either line or bar. Bar actually has the advantage that it makes it look like distinct measurements, right? So I think we are going to leave it at bar. Yeah. What else can we do here? We don't have negative values. We said that we are not going to zero the axis. Bar spacing, bar width. Actually, we can set back the width to auto now. So we're just going to remove that. And reload. Yeah, that's better. And then I'm going to quickly take a look at... oh, there's a normal range. I mean, it's not like that we can specify that. Oh, and it only works for line, apparently, and not for... Yep. For line, we have a lot more options than for bar. But we want bar, so we'll stay with bar. Okay, let me quickly take another look at the docs if there's some way that we can... What's that? Yeah, we don't know the max RxTX rate, Ramses. I mean, we know the theoretical one from the baud rate, but then we would not see anything. The limiting factor here is the oh, you mean the dynamic max so far seen? Because we could do that actually by monitoring it here. Can we set a max value for the... No, we cannot. I mean, the height is something different. It's, I think, only the height in pixels. Yeah, we don't... Yeah, changing that won't help us. We could just try an inline with normal range thingy, just as a test how it looks. And set the max X range to... Not max Y range. To, I don't know, 10, just as a test to see how it is parameterized, whatever. And the max normal, oh no, wait, we want to leave that undefined and want to set the max normal value to 10. And I think this should, or not. Ah, we also need to set a 0 apparently. Yeah, this is doing what we want. So if we set this to 2, 3, something happening there. Ah, it's behind the thing. Okay. Behind, but why is this filled in? And ah, there we go. So we want it like that. What do we do for that? Type line, fill color undefined, normal range min, normal range max. Type line. Fill color undefined. Normal range min. Normal range max would be self send bytes max. And we're going to introduce this. Oh no, we need now. Yeah. How do I merge two objects in JavaScript again? There was a simple extend function or something, and I use it on the client API a lot. So I'm simply going to take a quick look how that worked again. $.extend and then what I want to extend with what. Okay. So these are the stock options, and the normal range max has to be determined dynamically. So if I'm not mistaken, this, I typed an X. Give me an X. Thank you. This should work. And I swapped it. That should be received bytes max. Okay, and then we are going to define send bytes max is self received bytes max is 0. And then whenever we get new data, self send. Oh, that was a typing fail, if there ever was one. Math.max of self-received bytes max and message.receive rate bytes, and self-send bytes max is math is math max self send bytes max message send rate bytes. And now that thing should scale with whatever we saw during the whole session. Yeah, the lag is a bit larger than usual. I have the feeling, and I'm considering that my stream health is the same as always, at least based on what YouTube is telling me. I'm wondering if it's maybe something that's up with YouTube, because I'm fairly sure it was better before. Well, it's weird. Yeah, so this should now, over the whole browser session, it should persist the max value and on the client, not on the server. Or should we maybe make it persist on the server over the course of a connection? Come to think of it, that's actually nicer, I think. Yeah, we're going to do that. So small changes. We're going to save it here. And we're going to reset it here. Because now whenever we reconnect to the server, we reset it to 0. So this way it should only apply to every connection thing. And then we are going to send max equals max of self send max and send rate bytes, and self received max equals max of self received max self dot receive max receive rate bytes. And then we are going to add it to the stuff that we push to the client. I'm in the wrong location. Yeah, I should be. Yeah, okay. Send rate max is send rate is self send max, and send receive rate max is self receive max. So now that should be pushed to the front end, and then in the front end we can get rid of the thing that we just created there. And also get rid of that. And instead just use message.receive rate max and message.send send rate max. That should hopefully work after restarting. So we're going to restart. Reload, not restart. Reconnect. And then we're going to fire off a print job. And after the virtual heat up, we will hopefully see something helpful. Johan, the constant restarting is sometimes driving me nuts as well, but thankfully I'm mostly just used to it by now. And once that's over, we should hopefully see it keep the range. I'm actually wondering, I think we don't need the gray area, we just need to change the Y max on the spark line, right? Because we don't actually need this here, but this here, max range, max Y range. And min we want min at 0 and max at, I don't know, 3. So chart range max. Quickly going to change that. So it's probably chart range min, yeah. And this is then chart range max. If we now restart, reload, oh, you know what I mean. Yeah, it's not fairly, so it's not scaling this up anymore to the whole thing there, but keeping it down. Now we're going to do an SD card upload again, just to test that. Poof. Through the roof. And after that, everything will probably be stuck very, very low. Even if we now print, we should see it not rising up very much, because in comparison, yeah, now it's heating up, so we're not seeing anything, but the Y range should now be between 0 and I think it was 5,000 or something, so yeah. No. Yes. Okay. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure this Y range thingy is actually working like I'm expecting it to, because this looks like more than what it should be at. Ah, well. Let's leave it at that. So, sparkline plots. Woohoo! Going to commit that. Looks good. Looks good as well. And yeah, we don't have to check that. And yeah, Justin, I have the impression that something is not working correctly with the Y value. It looked like it scaled, but it looked like it didn't scale to the amount that I would have expected it to scale. Because I was seeing something like 1,600 bytes per second, and the max that we had during SD streaming was, I think, 5,000, and the 1,600 was definitely more. Yeah, was very close to half of the height. So, but I don't know. My mind might just be playing tricks here. It's really hard to see. What we could do, just temporarily, is that's the wrong editor. Is set the height of the chart, not to the line height, which is the current default, but instead set it to, I don't know, something like 100. That will look absolutely horrible. I'm completely aware of that. Oops. Yeah. But it might give us a better vertical range to judge whether the scaling functions like it should. So that should, yeah. I mean, it looks absolutely horrible, as I said, but yeah, that looks okay, actually, right? I mean, this is 46, and up there is a couple thousand. Can we put the max into the tooltip? Well, if we now print what we printed before, no, if we stream to, no, not stream, we print, yeah. Yeah, we're just going to reprint this. So we should now see this not climb up that high. And that's actually looking good. So once the heat up is done, that's about a fifth, that spike there, of the whole height, right? I mean, 2, 3, no, that's more. I'm pretty sure the max should be, let us just take a look into the debugger and get a grip of the values that we are, look, this is actually looking somewhat beautiful. So packed plugins, Terminus stats is actually correct. Look at that, that's nice. And we're going to set a breakpoint here, bam, and now we get a message that we can inspect. Message. Send rate max 5,156. And send rate history, yeah, the latest value is 467, which should be, yeah, send rate bytes. So that should be about a tenth of what we saw. I have set chart range. Yeah, chart range min is set to 0. I mean, it's not like this is a problem that we can actually solve, because if it is actually not scaling correctly, then it is a problem within the library. But let's look. We have a max here in the send rate history of 2,449, and this is the spike there. And the whole thing is 100 pixels high, and the top should be 5,156. And this actually looks like about a half, so I think it's scaling correctly after all, and the mind was just playing tricks on us with this line height, because the line has a certain thickness, and that gets confusing. Also, why does it have a fill color? I thought I did set this to undefined. I don't want a fill color. It doesn't have a fill color here. Why does mine have a fill color? I'm not happy about this. Oh, that's a good point. Yeah, we're going to do that. So we are quickly going to quickly going to duplicate this. Oh wait, wasn't this actually? Ha! Then we are going to comment this out, and I'm going to change this received thing here to not this, but instead, and this is, we are going to set this to 5,000 and this to 0, 2,000, no, 1,250, 2,500, 37,005. You know what? Why am I making it so complicated for myself? Or, oh, you know what? 100, 25, 50, 100, 75, 100, 75, 50, 25, 0. So the received thing will now no longer be really functional for our actual values, but we will get at least an idea of if this thing is scaling like it should or not. Okay, we are going to need bars for that. I would say it is scaling correctly after all, right? I mean, this looks correct. And a bit like the like a fancy skyscraper thing. But okay, so this works apparently after all, apart from the fill color not being accepted as undefined for whatever reason, but who cares, right? Not us. So we can return it to the old value. Why did I restart the server? There was no need to restart the server. Oh no. And then we restart. And then we reload. And then we unset the breakpoint that we forgot to unset before. Oh, also we need to rescale this. Do not restart, only reload. Yeah. That's looking somewhat nice-ish again. Also, this is starting to really annoy me, so I'm going to quickly change it to report something that isn't as problematic. And then we can disconnect, reconnect. Okay. All right. So is there something that we changed, or is it back to, yeah, it's back to our sparkline commit. All right. So the final point here is better styling without jumping around the values, but it's already 7 p.m. and I think I actually should not start with that now, because that would probably keep me here until at least 8, and frankly I'm a bit tired after this week. So I think we are going to call it a day here after 2 hours of stream, which I hope is fine. And instead we'll do a third installment of this series here, where we'll look into styling and also might actually tackle this multiprocessing thing there. I mean this final point, which will be something that will have to be implemented by multiprocessing, which is why I just mentioned that. Yeah. I'm wondering if I forgot something or anything I still wanted to do. But I don't think so. Yeah, we can take a quick look if it. Yeah. So if you want, you can install that plugin from this. From this from this URL. From this URL. Now we have it. And play around with that a bit if you want to. Yeah, I guess the next will be probably around Tuesday, I think, something like this. So then we'll tackle the styling. And I also try to come up with some good idea until then, because right now I'm not entirely sure yet how to do it. Maybe a table or something, or the thing is, if we put it in in these if we just put it on a line, then it will always jump. We don't want that, even if we set it fixed point, because the width of the, let me quickly switch back to the, just to show you the problem. So even if we set this to a fixed number of, I don't know, 3 digits or 2 digits, it will never really work. So we cannot really set this to a fixed value. So it will always jump, and we don't want it to jump. So either we put it all underneath each other, so there is no, even that will not really work. So the idea would be maybe to create a table or something. I'm not entirely sure yet how to solve that. If you have any ideas, please put them in the comments. Or put them in the comments. That's probably a good idea. Because this right now is a bit annoying, this whole jumping in back and forth. We could, of course, just use the spark lines, but I do want some meaningful, interesting. I do want some meaningful values that you can actually take a look at as well. What I was just wondering actually is if there's any way that I can do about the, is there anything that I can do about the tooltips, that they also contain a min and a max value maybe, but I don't think so. Look like a notepad status bar or hyperterm. Can you throw me an example of that in screenshot form or something on IRC or something, Sean? That would be great, because right now I'm drawing a blank. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. No. Stop here. So. Yeah. So Tuesday, I said. Hopefully, I think so. So far, I think where's my calendar? Let me quickly check, but I think Tuesday is still free. Yeah, that looks good. Oh, actually, Tuesday will be 1 month after my birthday. And then we'll talk about. Then we'll tackle the styling, if I have an idea until then how to do that. Sean just sent me something via IRC, so I'll take a look at that. And then we'll also maybe take a look at the multiprocessing stuff, and if not, then we'll tackle some bugs or something like this. So that's the current idea. And Chris just gave us a side quest: enable disable lines per second, bytes per second in Sparkline. So yes, we're going to add more settings. That's a good point. I'm actually going to add this to the to-do list. Mm-hmm. There we go. It's now saved. So we will tackle the styling and disabling and enabling that stuff, and then maybe also the multiprocessing stuff, or I'll just hunt down some bugs or something in the code or add a new feature. I'm sure we'll find something to do within 2.5 hours or something like that, which so far has been the usual runtime of these things. And until that, I hope all of you stay healthy and safe and all that. Wash your hands regularly, of course. Wear a mask when you go outside. And yeah, happy printing and bye.